Good morning on the West Coast and good afternoon on the East Coast. Welcome to 30 Minutes to Better Business Results. My name is John Witt and I'm your host. And we're the show that works with and helps small business owners improve their business faster by spending 30 minutes a day, 30 minutes a week working on their business instead of working in their business. The idea behind this show is to generate 3 action items to move your business forward. We know that there are 53 million, actually more than 53 million freelance contractors in the United States. We know that a lot of people have gone out and tried to start their own business coming out of the Great Recession. Fortunately, we're getting some good hiring data coming back, but a lot of people have gone out and started their own business in the first place. We've got a Q&A session going on today, so if you have any questions, JB is running the board and he'll tell us those questions. We'll be able to help answer you on that. Today we're joined by Derek Wong. Derek Wong, thanks for joining us today. Derek is the Regional Director for Lynx Players International. And coming this way just a little bit. Yeah, because we got to get you on the camera. So Derek, I asked Derek to come join us because Lynx Players International is actually a nonprofit. He's going to talk to us a little bit about that. But really, running a nonprofit isn't a whole lot different than running a for-profit. We have some difference in tax status, and we have some difference in the benefits that are received from our products and services. And we'll get into that a little bit. So let's have a seat.
All right.
So, Derek, I'm a member of Lynx Players International, and I can talk a little bit about it, but I want you to spend a little bit of time talking about it. If you would share with our audience a little bit about Lynx Players International and how you got involved and where you're at today.
Well, Lynx Players International was started by PGA professional Jim Hiskey back in the early 80s. And Jim played on the PGA Tour, and he was just passionate about his faith as a Christian. And what he wanted to do was use that platform with people that love golf. And so what he did was he started what was called the Lynx Letter. And the Lynx Letter was this little mail fold-out that he would send quarterly to those like you and I that love golf, and we wanted to hear stories about the PGA golfer. And of course, the first one was sent out was Gary Player. And so you would get this newsletter, and you would subscribe for it for like $25 a year, and you would get it. And so that's how Lynx Players was started. And then as they would travel around the tour, what they would do is they would meet different people in different places throughout the country, and they would actually start what they call fellowship groups, which is what you're part of over at your club. And so that's how Lynx Players got started. And how I got involved, first of all, I was a subscriber for the newsletter, and then of course, literally 20 years later, I played golf in a tournament, a club championship, with a guy who, of course, we're battling it out, and he hits the tree, and of course, you're hoping it goes out of bounds, but in the middle of the fairway. And a friend of his said, "Hey, good thing I prayed for you this morning." And so sure enough, after the tournament, neither one of us won. I asked him about, "Oh, you said you prayed for this guy?" And he goes, "Yeah, in fact, we have a Lynx Fellowship here at the club that meets on Wednesday mornings." And I said, "Really? I never heard about that. Been involved with church and different men's fellowships." And sure enough, I was there on a Wednesday morning, and that's how I got introduced to Lynx Players, because so happened that morning was the president and COO, Jeff Hopper. He was there that morning, and I introduced to him, and I actually was invited to come on their board as a director, and I was a board director for 2 years.
So Lynx is a fellowship group of golfers, Christian golfers.
Yes.
Practicers, believers in the Christian faith, and so this is a little bit of ministry activity, right?
Yes, it
Maybe
is.
it's a lot of a ministry activity. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Now, Lynx is an acronym. And I know you've shared this with me before, but I could never get it right. So if you could share that with
Sure, I will.
us.
So Lynx, L stands for love God and others. The I is integrate Christ's reign. And then the N is networking together in Christ through golf. And then the K is really cool. It's kindling compassion for the poor and needy. And so a lot of our guys who are Lynx Players, we want to help the poor and needy in our area where we're at. And then the S is how we share Christ through the game of golf.
So when we look at the nonprofit activity, we'll move into, you're the regional director, right? So you've got Southern California and you've got Nevada.
Yeah.
One time you had Northern California and you had
Arizona.
Right. And Lynx is worldwide?
Yes, we're actually international. We
Yeah.
actually have a Lynx
Yeah.
group in
International.
Moscow, so we actually call it Lynx Players International, so in Moscow and a few other places around the world. But we're mainly focused here in the United States. I have 4 other counterparts. Our corporate office is in Fresno, Clovis, California.
Okay.
And then our president is in the Palm Springs area, La Quinta. And then same with our CEO. And then I have a counterpart in Dallas, Texas, and Atlanta, and also in Arizona. And
So how many fellowship groups are there?
we have probably over about 175 fellowship groups that meet actually in restaurants, McDonald's, coffee shops, and a lot of them are in my region, for example, are in country clubs. And they're actually all led and run by the actual members of the club.
Uh-huh. So how many, you've got how many in your region?
I oversee about 34 fellowships.
34 fellowships.
Yeah,
So it's
and
almost like 34 groups,
yeah, 34
teams
groups,
that are
right.
that are practicing this activity. And then so from a goal standpoint, growing the number of fellowships, growing the activity, sharing, and you really, one of the things you really hit on me, the K, right?
Yeah.
Is all about helping the needy. I mean, in so many ways, that's really what it's all about.
Yeah.
When people make donations, contributions, time, money, goods, services, it's really that's what they're getting, right? Is they're serving their God, so to speak, with those donations.
Yeah, because a lot of these men and women that are in golf and in the country clubs, they've been really blessed. I mean, if you think about it, you work hard, and one of the things you look at is probably later in life, or some of the things that you worked hard for, is to be able to be a member at a country club or a golf club. And so a lot of these men and women are there, and now they're enjoying the retirement life per se. And now they're saying, what else can I do with the resources God has given to me? And so we talked about your time, your talents, and your treasures. And so those are the 3 T's that we hopefully encourage our guys to be able to use it rather than just playing golf.
Well, how do you give back and say thank you
Exactly.
for the gifts that you've received and the benefits that you've received? And certainly, some of us are more fortunate than others in many ways. And
Right.
so, realizing that we're not always in charge, we didn't make it happen. We managed to fit into the right spot. Maybe we worked hard, we got some good stuff, but giving back to those people that are less fortunate is really certainly a big deal.
Absolutely.
And then, for me personally, I just enjoy the fellowship. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy the learning. I enjoy the growth that I experience in my faith in Christianity, and I find that to be really helpful and valuable from the Lynx group.
Yeah.
So then, in terms of expanding your ministry, right? Where would you like to take your 34 fellows? How many would you like to have?
Well, what's neat is that obviously, I've been on staff now for 6 years, and we started literally when I was on the board. We actually started our first fellowship group at the club I belong to. And actually, in the beginning, we couldn't even meet at the club. Our general manager says, no, you guys can't meet here. So we actually met at a coffee shop. And that group grew, and of course, just through time and connections, somebody at our club says, hey, we can have it back at our club. And so that was kind of as I look at it, it's kind of been a training ground. I've learned a lot through that group, and now with the 34 groups that are meeting now, some are flourishing and some are struggling. And some struggle because sometimes it's the leader that, because again, because we're a nonprofit, we don't pay our people that lead our fellowship groups. And so we look for different volunteers that are in the club or that have a passion or heart, as I call it, calling, that wants to lead a fellowship group. And so my role is to come alongside them, train them, support them, encourage them, and I would always say fan their flames, as they get discouraged. It's like anybody who owns a business or whatever, they get discouraged, and who comes alongside them and kind of encourages them. And so that's part of my role. And so I look for leaders, and I think I shared with you earlier, we use the acronym FACT. And in fact, Jim Hiskey told me FAT, and I go, what's that, Jim? He goes, faithful, available, and teachable. And so I use that as I look for leaders in the different clubs I was going around. And one thing I found out, John, that I missed was the C. And the guy who said, hey, I'm a member of the club, but I'm only there once a quarter, or I don't play. Well, he hardly knew a lot of the members, so he couldn't get guys to come to their group. And the C was the connector. And sure enough, in every group, when we found that connector, he would invite all his buddies that he golfed with. And this guy probably golfed 3-4 days a week. And he would say, oh, you got to come Thursday morning. And sure enough, we saw the groups kind of expand.
So you've defined more effectively the person that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But even the FAT, what was it again? Faithful,
available,
available,
and teachable.
Yeah. So if I'm running a business, right, faithful could be faithful to the organization, right?
Yeah.
Devoted to the organization. Teachable certainly has to be there, and available has to be there, and those are things activities that are necessary in every business that we've got.
Yeah.
Connector, depending more on the role of what you're doing. So some businesses need a connector, and some people need other types of things.
Yeah.
So you can figure that out. But for your business, you've got the connector.
Yeah.
And so when you look at that, and you're at 34, and you'd like to grow, or do you have a target to grow to?
Yeah, our overall organization, we'd like to see 500 fellowships throughout the U.S. And a lot of it is created through, we call it organic growth. And the reason why we say the word organic is because we believe that God is the one that will call these different leaders. But our role is to get out there and get the word out. And we don't do any advertising or marketing, but it's all done through word of mouth. Mm-hmm. So it's like yourself, you're involved in one, and you play in a tournament with a guy at another club, and you say, hey, I'm involved in this Links Fellowship over at my club. Well, call Derek. And that's how it starts. So how we get our leads, or how do we get our contacts, is through really a lot of our other Links players.
I think it's so funny because leads and contacts, the same things, right? So, just, you have a nonprofit as opposed to a for-profit, but the things you're trying to get accomplished are so similar.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it in terms of trying to grow and trying to get where you want to go, right? So businesses out there, everybody that's listens to the show and watches the video, they've got a business, they're trying to make it grow. I would almost bet that is the #1 goal for everybody, right? And yours is the same way, right? So let's talk about, what are the critical constraints that you have in being able to do that?
Yeah, well, I think the restraints a lot of time is time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I first started with Links Players, I was considered the Southwest Regional Director. And again, we focused on the South because of weather, and you can golf all year long.
Sure.
And so I have a counterpart in the Southeast. And so my region went from California to Arizona down to San Diego and over to Las Vegas. And so realizing I could only get to certain destinations and do an effective job by meeting people. You've got to be there. You've got to be in there constantly. And so fortunately, I found a guy who retired pastor that just moved from Northern California to Arizona, and his name is Louis Greer. And Louis and I, we started a fellowship. He loved golf, he loved God, and he loved what Links Players was about. And I just said one day, I said, hey, pray about it. Maybe, you might want to consider coming on staff as one of our directors. And sure enough, through time and prayer, and Louis has been on staff with us for over 1.5 years now, loves what he does, and sure enough, we're seeing more fellowship groups be started in the Arizona market.
One of the challenges I think that people have, maybe the #1 challenge, actually, as a coach, I've been doing this for quite a while now. I mean, there are two things that I end up working with people almost universally. One is communication skills, because those never go out of date, and they always need to be improved. You've always got to work on it. You've always got to sharpen it. And the other one is time management. How do I effectively manage my time? Because as an owner, we get this vision, and in fact, why don't I show you this little example? There's a little power principle that we use here at Focal Point. It's called the 3 I's of the Entrepreneur, and we'll talk about how it relates to time and see if that might stimulate some additional thoughts, some ideas, and some thinking that generate maybe some new ideas, new action items for you in moving your fellowship forward.
Okay, sounds good.
So I think on the screen, John, tell me if we're there. Okay, so we've got 3 I's of the business owner, and this is out of a book by Michael Gerber called The E-Myth Revisited. The E-Myth Revisited is a great little story, and it starts with Mary, and Mary is in the pie shop, right? And she learned to make pies at the foot of her aunt, and this is the memories and the smells and just the feelings and the emotions of this activity were so exciting that she decided that she wanted to open up her own pie shop.
Right.
And the story takes place, it's 11 o'clock at night. Mary's back in the kitchen, She is covered in flowers. She's all by herself. And Michael's there talking to her, and she's just pissed. She's upset. Everybody's gone home. She's got 50 pies to make for the next night, and this is just not what she wanted to do. Right? You know, it didn't connect with the emotions and everything else. And so, so what Michael does is he starts to describe sort of the different views and the different positions that business owners have. And so the first one he talks about is a very outward view, right? And this is the entrepreneur. And this is when you have a new idea and you're starting a new business. A lot of questions you're asking are like, what if, and how can I, and would somebody be interested in this? And so very outward market-based, service delivery-based type questions. And then what happens as the business starts to grow a little bit, right? We start to focus inward on the business a little bit, and we take on this thing called the manager role. And the manager role is really important, still very valuable, but asks different questions. Asks when, and how much, and how many, right? Because now we got to start to deliver products and services, right? And then what we always see a lot of small businesses go, and this is the time key, right? Is this last little one here, and we call this the technician role, or we call this googly eyes, right? And this is when you're trying to do anything and everything. So not only are you setting the vision for the company. In fact, what happens when you're in this particular role, you're not spending much time on vision at all, right? This is when you're delivering the products. This is when you're answering the phone. This is when you're making the pies. This is when you're rolling out the dough. This is when you're buying the product. This is when you're buying all the stuff that you need to do it. And what happens is your business grows and grows, right? The business owner ends up in this particular technician role, and they end up going kind of crazy. And this is where Mary's at, right? At 11 o'clock at night, she's just really unhappy and really upset with this kind of thing. And so what we talk to people about is in this technician role, and I know for you, you want to be up in the entrepreneur role. Right? I mean, it's not a for-profit business, but you've got a goal and you're trying to get these things done. And when we tell people is if you were going to hire somebody to do this lower level stuff, right, answer the phone or do the filing or do that kind of stuff, what would you pay them on an hourly basis?
Well, probably depending on the marketplace, anywhere between $10, $15 an hour.
10, 15 bucks an hour, right? And then if you had a manager, right, and say you had a whole bunch of people in the shop and you were paying a manager to manage that group of people, how much would you pay that manager?
Probably like $30, $35 an hour.
35 bucks an hour, $70,000 a year, right? But then as the owner, and I'm going to shift because you're not in this for money in your particular case, but if you were the owner and you're running a business for yourself and you were a business owner at one particular point, what kind of money would you be interested in making?
As much as you can.
As much as you can. and rather than make you step on the air and throw a number out there, I'll tell you, people give me $100 an hour, $150 an hour, $200 an hour, depending on their profession. And they're the owner, right? They're the entrepreneur. And so the key to the technician, you mentioned it earlier, right? The market sets the rate for the technician. The market sets the rate for the manager. The owner, the entrepreneur, gets to set the rate for themselves.
Right.
Okay. And when we say you want to make $150 an hour, what I really tell people is this: I said, if you want to make that kind of money, right, you need to do tasks, you need to do activities that are worth that kind of money, right? So answering the phone, probably not worth that kind of money,
right? Because
you could buy it for somebody else, right? If you want to make $150 an hour, you would never spend time doing $25, $15 an hour work. You would be losing money. Right? Those hours are valuable. You could spend those hours doing $150 stuff. And so it really comes down to what's your highest and best use more than anything else. Okay. So when we get into this particular model, and we say, listen, we need to spend some more time at this entrepreneur thing, one of the help people is figure out how to spend more time in the entrepreneur space, right? So one of the things we might do is we might look at the technician and make a list of all of these tasks that are lower level, right? And then it's not that they don't need to be done, right? It's just that we want to do them more efficiently. And so then we can step back and say, well, how could I find somebody else to help me do this stuff, right? Do I hire somebody? Is it full-time? Is it part-time? Is it commission? Is it a volunteer? All of those things, right, might be the case. But clearly we've got to have a good list, good idea, and a good understanding if we're going to ask somebody else to come in and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's good.
So as an entrepreneur for you, right, do you see yourself getting into the technician model or the model?
Constantly. I mean, because it's kind of one of the things is we have a corporate office that does a lot of maybe our technical stuff that we need because we have a website and all that, but I think when it comes to just the phone follow-ups and the emails and things like that.
Well, you mentioned you run a lot of events. Now, certainly
Yeah.
the fellowship groups and
Yeah.
groups that meet at all the clubs, but you have special events.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, and what we've done is when we have the whether it's the PGA Tour or the LPGA Tour in town, we try to do what we call them outreaches, and so usually it's either a dessert or a breakfast, and we have a couple golf professionals that are on tour actually come in and share their story, and it's like what we're doing now. It's kind of like a interview type process with these players, and so a lot of these events when we first started, it was like 100 people. And we had one last year, we had over 350 people. And so when you set the events up, my role is to go, find the place, the location, and then obviously get the menu, whatever, if we do a dessert or we do a breakfast. And then now you got to get the invitation out. You do a save the date, and then, of course, now you get people to hopefully buy tables, because we found that's the best way. If you buy a table, John, you bring 9 of your friends and you fill the table. So it's easier in that
So when you talk about emails, right, and the save the date and all that other kind of stuff,
yes,
those are things that a technician could do, or an assistant could do, or something like that.
Right.
Because then if you had somebody to do that, right, and that doesn't necessarily fill the seats, right, but it takes care of the tasks that are necessary to set the stage, right. Then what would you do? Where would you spend your time?
Well, then at that point, obviously, I would still continue to be able to spend my time in developing the fellowship groups and being supportive with the actual fellowships that are started. Now, what that does is it takes the time away to now worry about the event. Now I'm focusing on, again, getting people to sign up for the event. So I'm doing a lot of the things that, like you were talking about, the
right in it, right in it.
Yeah.
Okay, so for your group, I mean, obviously getting somebody to help in and come organize and manage those details, somebody that's interested with a passion in the cause that you represent would really be valuable. And then, I think in terms of that particular event, I mean, if you were to just reach out to folks occasionally and say, hey, would you be interested in buying a table? Now that would be high value, right? You get 10 people at a time,
Right.
And because of your understanding and knowledge and relationships, that would be a very effective, efficient use of your time.
Right.
And it might also dovetail into fellowships and where they're going and starting new groups and things like that. That might be really, really effective. And so those are the things that you don't get to do because you're sitting here figuring out how do I put 200 or 300 people or 100 people and get these seats in because I've committed to this event or venue for food and everything else, right? And now we got to get people into that thing.
And I found, and you hit it right on the head, where I'm more effective when I get to all the groups before the event, and I talk to the leaders one-on-one, or I talk to the group, and I'm able to do that more efficiently than sometimes an email. So if I said, hey, John, we're having this event in 2 months, it'd be great if you can go out and purchase a table and invite any of your friends versus me just sending you an email. And you might have read it, and it might be in your...
One-on-one is way much more effective, and we know that. Okay, so understanding this model that we've just talked about, right? Understanding that this stuff is there and what that costs you now, right? Because you're spending time doing $10 or $15 or $20. We're just making analogies here as opposed to your highest and best use. What are some of the action items? What are some of the things you think you might?
Well, first of all, obviously, find some volunteers, because we're a nonprofit. We'll find some volunteers that say, hey, would you be willing to take that role on to send out the emails, send the save the date, and kind of doing maybe the setups, and then probably put a team together, other people to help kind of maybe promote it as they can go to some of the other clubs and talk about the event. And of course, now it's not me talking about it. You've got 10 other people talking about it, and then maybe those 10 people will talk to 10 others, and it kind of just the numbers start to grow because other people are talking about it.
Right. Okay. So find some volunteers. Right?
Yes.
How are you going to do that?
Well, first of all, get the word out and invite certain people, maybe to a meeting. As they say, feed them. Come. And do that, and hopefully get people to say, yeah, I'm in. I'll be involved in.
Give a good list, a good structured list process that you'd like somebody to come in and follow.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you're doing it yourself, you don't have to always write it down, right? Because it's all up here.
Yeah.
The key here is getting all of this stuff down so somebody could follow it.
Yes.
And then promoting that. We need this. We need somebody that can do this stuff.
Yeah.
And then identifying maybe how much time. It's not a full-time job.
No.
Right.
Right. And I think if you identify the people that have been to the events in the past, that's always helpful because they already relate to, oh, I've been there, I've seen it go, I've seen how it went, and so they already don't have to imagine it, they've already seen it and been there, so they have the experience. And so I think it's also, again, coming back to that, finding the right people on your, whether it's your volunteer committee or the people that actually do the legwork.
What's the next big event?
Next big event that we have is actually the Toshiba's in town here in Orange County, and they moved it from March. Now it's going to be end of October, the last week of October. In fact, I just talked to one of the guys that I do the event with this morning, and so we're talking about different PGA speakers to be at the event, and so we'll probably have it again at the Balboa Bay Club, and hopefully have about 350 to 400 people this year. So our goal is to keep growing it, and
I interrupt you because I wanted you to talk about the show, but now let's talk about when do we need this person in to be able to help you with that. That's in October.
Yeah, so today was the day that we kind of talked about, okay, we're on, we're going to do it, and now I've got to put a list together of people that I want to get involved in being on, to help with that.
So by the end of May, the end of June?
I would say probably by end of June because, as you know, a lot of people, if you do too early, they forget about it. So I'll probably want to start off of save the date type of thing, so people notice.
Well, I'm backing up, because ideally we would have a volunteer that comes in and does that. So we have to ratchet that thing up a little bit more, so that they're on board and ready to do the things that you need to do when you do it.
Okay.
So building kind of like maybe a mini schedule or plan that says, here are the things that I'm going to do to get this person on board, and this is when I'm going to do them, so that it's in time for this thing, right? So that I can begin to take some of the, some of the day-to-day or some of these lower-level tasks. And it's not that you can't do them, and it's not that you don't want to do them. That's the thing, for most business owners, for a lot of business owners say, well, I really don't want to ask my employee to do that. It's the problem you run into is it's costing you the opportunity to go do your highest and best value.
Sure.
Right? And if you're running a business and you're going to do your highest and best value, right, that's where you're generating the biggest revenue, right? Now, do you get to pay employees a raise or do things like that when you generate more money?
Sure.
For your business? So the reality is when you're doing it yourself, instead of getting somebody else to do it, you're actually hurting that person because you're not out doing your highest and best use for the company, right? And we think we're doing them a favor because, we did it ourselves and we didn't ask them to do it, right? But the reality is we're not. We're punishing everybody because we're not using our best, highest use and gifts.
Yeah.
So.
I'm very guilty of that. And I think it's one of those things where, sort of like if you want to get it done, you do it yourself, rather than really giving it to someone to do it and trust that that person's going to get it done. And I think that's that whole part of maybe being an entrepreneur or being your own boss type of thing.
Well, it becomes a little control factor too, right? Nobody does it as good as you do.
Right.
Nobody does it as good as I do, right? But can they do it well enough to make a difference? And that's where we have to get into a system and a process as to how they get it done. But we can talk about that another time. So we've reached the end of our half an hour. It's amazing. It goes really, really fast. It's a very simple conversation. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you for having it.
And I look forward to having you back on the show maybe in another 6 or 8 weeks. Maybe we can do another segment and you can tell us how you're doing in finding that volunteer.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
For those of you that have been watching the show, thank you for joining us. Tune in next week. We've got Katie Wagner, who's a social media expert, going to join us, and we're going to get some really good information, news, and tips from her. And thanks again to Derek for joining us today.
Thank you, John.
Really appreciate it. All right, everybody out there, have a great week. Thanks again.